to the Muslim Street podcast. Here today, Sunday at 12 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. We're coming to our regular, at least scheduled time. You can find us at www.themuslimstreet.com. You can also find us across all shadow banned social media, Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, etc. Again, we are joined this week by Dr. Viber Issa White, who is the author of Blacklisted, The Price for Speaking the Truth. You can find that book on Amazon and across Barnes & Noble and wherever else that you might find the books that we are reading today. And we'll post a link during the show where you guys can click on the link and purchase his book. It is a timely piece in this time that we're living in, which is the time of the suppression of voices. We're also joined by a co-convener of the Diaspora 23, and that would be the great world traveler himself, Art Mobley. Art is also a founding member of the National Association of Black Journalists. And we are going to dive into what we think is a very timely and important subject. And what do we I don't want to go any further without mentioning the fact that we're produced out of Ghana, West Africa, by the Lance Scurv Show. Shout out to Lance. And plug him in, guys. Do a search on his work. He's been at this at least, I think, for about 25 years. So Lance, the great producer of the Muslim Street. Today, we entitled this show, again, very timely, Somalia and the division or an attempt at the division between Africa and the African diaspora. This is a very intense subject matter, and we're going to dive into it from a lot of different perspectives. But we'll kind of set this up with two things. One is that I want to clearly have you understand that there's nobody Black or African that controls the social media dynamic. The algorithm. And when you start seeing information floating around in a hyper sensitivity type of way, all of a sudden, don't think that's because you have some kind of interest in it. And I'm talking to the Black masses and the African masses. It's by design. So what happened basically over the last couple weeks that happened simultaneously? One is the United States government under their leader, the Führer himself, President Donald Trump, started attacking Somalia. A few weeks back, it was Nigeria. So there's a pattern here. Venezuela, and they set up a war and invasion that's taking place there. So this attack on Somalia, right? Calling the Somalian people garbage people, and we don't want these garbage people in the United States. And then at the same time, we see floating around in an intense, hyper intense way, and a misplaced speech from 6 years ago from a Somalian that they dug up out of Canada, out of Toronto. This is literally what happened at the same time. So it's not an accident. We don't believe in accidents. So this speech, and Lance, we're going to kind of set this up, was given 6 years ago by a Sheikh, Saeed Rajay, out of Toronto. He's a Somalian immigrant to Canada. And he, during his Juma Kuba, the Friday prayers, gave a baseless attack on Black Americans. We're going to play a little bit about that, right? But then he also came out with an apology. And even though I thought the apology was kind of weak, at least he came out with the apology, et cetera, et cetera. But the real issue, as I turn this over to our panel, is that why did they dig up a 6-year-old Somalian attacking Black Americans? It is because this whole trick to keep the Africans in the diaspora separated, divided from the Africans on the continent. This is clear. And it's really a move of desperation because they know what's coming. So before I turn this over to the panel, I want to set up just a little bit of context before I have Lance kind of play the apology with respect to the Black American community by Sheikh Saeed. And that is a little bit about the history of the United States. I want to talk about Somalia in the West. They were affected. The Somalians, as all of Africa was in the Middle East, was affected by European colonialism. At the Berlin Conference, 1884, all the European nations sat down and they carved up the world. The British and the Italians took a piece of Somalia. And if you want to find out what and who colonized anywhere around the world, just find out what the people are speaking in terms of their languages. You want to know why Indians, hundreds of millions of Indians speak English? It's because the British colonized them. You want to know why the Nigerians speak English and the Sudanese? Because the British colonized them. You want to know why the Moroccans, the Tunisians, the Malians, and the Senegalese speak French? It's because the French colonized them. This is real simple, right? Now, so Somalia, in its history, Islam comes there during the 7th century, primarily through trade, and particularly the formation under European colonization. And these countries are kind of created. They don't exist on ancient maps, right? So these countries are created during European colonialization. The borders are drawn during European colonialization. There's histories of tribes, and there's over 10,000 tribes on the African continent that goes back thousands of years. There are agreements and truces and standards inside of these tribes and how they get along with one another that go back thousands of years. All of this disrupted in what we call probably the last impactful disruption on the African continent. That was the 19th century engagement of European powers to divide up Africa and take its resources to build and feed Europe. Now, so Somalia gets its independence from the British and the Italians in 1960, and then kind of fast forward to some of you kind of understand a very popular engagement that went down in the early 1990s under the Clinton administration, and that was Black Hawk Down. The United States Air Force engaged inside of Mogadishu, and there was a battle. The Somalians kicked their asses and sent them home. All right, literally, get out, go home. Under the Bush administration, and then I'll turn this over to the panel. With this context, just want to give a little bit of the history in the context with the engagement of the Somalis and the United States. While we, the Darfur 23, were over in the Sudan, at the same time, the United States government under the Bush administration had engaged in a war by proxy through Ethiopia in Somalia to disrupt the Somalian people, and subsequent invasion that led there, of course, with the U.S. support, and that would be military support with the Ethiopians. So there's two things going, Dr. White and Art Mobley in my setup. And that setup is one, how, and the question I put before you guys, what extremes will the United States government and the West not go to keep the African continent and the diaspora divided, right? And we see this latest move with the Somali sheikh out of Canada. They dusted off some 6-year-old speech, floated around Instagram. They floated it around Facebook. So much so that I even saw one of my grade school buddies post it and say, "Send them skinny asses back home." This dude can't even read. I know he couldn't read back in the 6th grade. Anyway, and then we have the context of the historical U.S. engagement in Somalia, and particularly recent being under the Clinton administration and then the Bush administration, where they got their butts kicked and sent them Black Hawks back home. So I'll turn that over. We can start with Dr. White in those two contexts, and I want to have this conversation before we play a little bit of the apology from Sheikh Zayed from 6 years ago. I want to have a little bit of context there as we jump into this, Dr. White.
Thank you, Brother Malik. Assalamu alaikum. The general gist of what you said is absolutely true, that the United States will not spare any nickel, any dime to create dissension, hostility in the African world and in the Middle East. That's what it's designed for. That's why we have military bases there. That's why we have picked sides and put in proxy leaders to control and manipulate the people and to present a policy that is in the best interest of the American government, not the people, but the American government. However, I think that this issue is very, very complex. For example, when we talk about solidarity of African Americans and Somalians, are we talking about two? Are we talking about African Americans and the Somalis who are in Africa? All right, that is one element of solidarity. And the more confused element is the solidarity of African Americans and Somalian Americans. That's where the tension lies within this scope. Now, within this scope, we have to ask again, for us as African Americans or FBA's foundational Black Americans, what is the benefit now of having a solidarity and a unified struggle with the Somali Americans? That is, what do we get from it, as opposed to what they get from it? These things are very, very interesting that needs to be debated and need to be looked upon. Now, in the scope of all of this, you have Representative Omar. Now, I looked at Sister Omar's record in reference to African American people, and her record in which producing bills that has made it out of Congress, out of committee, into bills. She hasn't produced any bills that made it out of committee that has supported the interests of the African American. Now put all this aside. Trump is stupid. All right, and he has his policies are completely wrong. But I'm talking about real bread and butter issues. For example, I say Omar because Omar, she is talking about unification, and that she's also saying that, well, the 80,000 Somalians who live in Minneapolis, St. Paul, Minnesota, the majority of them were either born in the United States and or are naturalized citizens. And she stands on the 14th Amendment. Now, remember, the 14th Amendment was an amendment that came out of the Civil War amendments, all right, that were the 13th, 14th, and 15th, that would make the wrongs of the slave period right in reference to voting, citizenship, and the ending of slavery. But she's saying that she's banking on them, and that's what the Somalians are looking at. The point is that she's calling for solidarity for African Americans in that light to align with her, but there aren't any real bills that she has promoted for the African Americans that will tell African Americans this is our true brothers and sisters on that side. That's a real conversation that must be had, and it's a touchy conversation, and it is a conversation that can deal into the solidarity. We have to begin to separate that from what I would call the Trump dogma. All right, because Trump's dogma is strictly white supremacy. It's strictly imperialism. But even if that didn't exist, still have this issue within the African American community and the American Somali communities that must be looked upon before we can even go any farther.
Okay, let me jump in before I turn this over to Art. And one of the things at the Muslim Street, we highlight and heighten the Black radical tradition, the Black radical tradition of struggle inside of the United States. Our most recent champion of that being Malcolm X, El-Haj Malik El-Shabazz. I want to quote something that Malcolm said in a speech to the African Summit Conference, August of 1964. He goes on to say, we in America are, speaking to the Africans, are your long lost brothers and sisters. And I'm here only to remind you that our problems are your problems. So I say that to say Malcolm's attempt to connect the struggle of the so-called Black Americans or the so-called Africans in America, because that's what literally what our scholars debated of who we are in the end of this, that we're Africans in America. So this special kind of tag that we're putting on our oppression here and calling ourselves stuff like ADOS and FBA. I heard you mention Dr. White. Malcolm would throw up at that kind of talk. You know how I know? Because Dr. World did. You know how I also know? Dr. Anderson Thompson did. You know how else I know? Kwame Ture did, right? Because this kind of this, you know, like Black Americans have this special entitlement because we're connected to the most powerful white man and his empire in the latest extent of their domination over the last 500 years. I don't buy into that. I don't buy into that because it clouds what Malcolm talked about. And that was simply at that conference in 1964, that we are one and the same. And the Somalis, particularly, should look at Ilhan Omar as their national voice. I
think,
Malik, let me finish. And I'll let you jump in. Her as the national voice of the Somalian people, and as an extension, the national voice of all Africans who have came to this country because they come here to collect their resources that the United States and other Western powers disrupted. We just talked about the invasions that went on in the 1990s. We talked about, previous to that, nearly 100 years of 80 years of colonialism. And we also talked about fighting a war by proxy while we were over in the region in 2006 and 2007. So it's not the Somalians who are invading anywhere, right? So I don't want to.
But I agree with you.
I don't want to get to a conversation about you know, the Ghanaians or the Nigerians or the Somalis or the Sudanese. We're all Africans. Mm-hmm. Okay, we're cousins. We're one and the same.
But I think Malik, there's something needs to be cleared about. When we evoke the name of Malcolm X, mm-hmm. and we talk about a Pan-Africanism of early 1960s and late 1950s, we were connecting with people like Kwame Nkrumah of Ghana, who was openly Pan-Africanist, who has studied at Lincoln University in Pennsylvania. We were connecting with people like the leader of Egypt, who was openly Pan-Africanist. However, all right, Omar and her people have not made any definitive statement as being Pan-Africanist. So therefore, it is important that we have this discussion. Wait a second. It is important that we have this discussion because we just cannot claim, just because we look the same, that their agenda is aligned with ours. Again, going back to
it's not their agenda. This is the whole point, bro. Omar.
Yeah.
Listen,
I mean, sure, we fight against white supremacy. I'm with you. And we should. However, all right, we should not go on the limb and say, well, okay, we will connect just because of this, unless they also put something into the dockets of African Americans and helping to fight the struggles here with us.
I don't buy that at all, and I don't buy that whole
Okay.
FBA, ADOS premise, because we know that premise was financed by white Republicans in the first place.
Whatever you want to say is fine.
Tariq Nasheed and Theo Moore, all sponsored by the white construct. Okay, to overtake and hijack the discussion on reparations for African people, and that's why they take the position of anti-African. That's why they take the position of anti-Caribbean. That's why they take the position of anti-anything else. But Black people were born in Mississippi and Watts. Okay, that's, to me, that's a Art Mobley. That's a defeatist projection. And not only that, it is not the projection of Malcolm X.
I'm over here throwing up, or trying to keep from throwing up. No, I'm just teasing. Listen, I certainly agree with Malcolm. I agree with Nkrumah. I agree with Gabel Nasser and Amilcar Cabral. And I agree with our recently departed brother, H. Rap Brown. I think that we are one people. Agree with Peter Tosh, too, who said, don't care where you come from, as long as you're a Black man, you are an African. You know, I think the sooner we get back to that trait, that understanding, whether we're in Somalia or we're in Ghana or we're in Nantucket, Mississippi, or some place in the Southwest here in Arizona, we are one people, and we will see ourselves as one people one day, just as Europeans have found a way to collectively see themselves as one people, white supremacy notwithstanding, or the Chinese people see themselves as one people, the Indian people, the Russian people. We have to understand that we are in a war. We have been in a war for more than 500 years, but more recently in a very serious war where it is extremely important that we gather our forces and stand back to back and deal with the challenges that we have at hand. They are not with each other. We are not fighting brothers from New York and brothers from Detroit and brothers from Watts, or brothers from Somalia, or brothers from Jamaica, or brothers from Trinidad, for that matter. We are to stand together as one people because we do have that common background, that common heritage. After we sort through all of that, then we can sit down and say, well, okay, we got a little attenuation and difference on this matter or that matter. We can have those arguments and sort those out later. But first, and this was something that went on during the Casablanca Conference of 1958 that brought Kwame Nkrumah, and also even of the Monrovia Conference, which brought together another sect of African people who believed in these two fundamental differences. One said, we need to move to unification of the African continent first. That was Nkrumah's group. The other group in Monrovia said, well, let's do that gradually. And I think what we've gotten back to is that gradualism. Nyeri of Tanzania was part of the gradualism group, who quickly and completely came back to the point where we have made an error. We should have been with Nkrumah and with that group to move towards a complete unification of the continent in the first place. So gradualism was a mistake, just as the differences and the fractionalizations that Africans and African Americans have on the continent and are developing here in the U.S. So we really do need to reflect and look at ourselves and realize that we're in a serious, serious predicament. We're in trouble. And we are the victims of a very pointed and sustained fight and war that's lasted for 500 years and counting. And the only way that we're going to be able to mitigate it and stand against it is we stand together.
Yeah,
I think Art, that I agree with you that we are all Africans, as Peter Tosh and Bob Marley sing, but to have these types of serious discussions and to highlight some of these contradictions does not mean that we're not in line with unification and Black solidarity. We should not take that approach or that perspective. What I'm saying is that the issues there are much more complicated than what we do. Yes, white supremacy is there. The whole element of the Trump administration or anybody else who is white, if the Republican or Democrat, is to undermine and to create dissension. But also along with that, we cannot ignore the fact that certain immigrant groups who are Black, who are coming to the United States, has not worked with us. In fact, I put it like this: there's only two major immigrant groups that has openly worked with African Americans, and that was Marcus Garvey's Jamaica, all right, consistently, and Haiti, consistently. And when I say, and I also put the Black Caribbean, but other groups, it has been hit and miss. 1 minute they're with us when it's feasible, and another minute they're undermining us. And this is where the African American community now is with us within the Black nationalist community. Again, this must be discussed and looked upon. We cannot ignore it. We cannot sweep it under the carpet. And we just can't hide around the fact that it's just an element of white supremacy that's keep creating this. Because again, when I look at issues of reparations,
I'm going to get my dustpan and my broom right now. I'm going to sweep this under the carpet. I'm going to ignore it because it is not important. It's not important.
It is
what
important.
Jamaicans think. It's not important what Somalis are saying in Minnesota. It's not just as African Americans. I mean, we've had our differences from coast to coast, but nobody is saying that we speak as a monolith, and nobody can say that Jamaicans speak as a monolith or that Somalis speak as a monolith.
I'm not saying that at all. But if you want to go to the Black movement, let's go with Fred Hampton and Fred Hampton's conflict and ideas with cultural nationalists. All right, they didn't like him because he was political, but at the same time, he never said that they were not part of the struggle. He called for an open debate about these issues because these issues impacted on our growth and our development. You see, as a people,
cultural nationalism was a misplaced priority.
We cannot. We do a disservice to the discussion of liberation.
Revolutionary nationalism has to precede cultural nationalism. You will find that to be true anywhere in any revolution in the world. So, we have to get back to the nationalism that pulls together under the banner of unity first. Then we can deal with those things.
Absolutely, unity has to be there, but it must be done in a manner that is feasible for all groups. And look at the issues there. That's all what I'm saying.
Satisfy everybody at once, and you're not going to satisfy everybody as a prerequisite.
But we're talking about the leadership. We're talking about 90,000 Somalis who are in the United States.
They are in the United States, and God bless them. They are in a community where they were able to support a candidate.
And 6 out of 10 of them. And 6 out of 10 of them are in Minnesota.
If I lived in Minnesota, I would have voted for Ilhan Omar just as quickly as I'd vote for you in your district, wherever that is. I'm telling you, we have to stick
You're welcome
together.
to move here. District 10 Orlando, Orange County. I have a house for you.
Yeah. So let me jump in. I think Dr. White, what Art is getting at is, especially as he mentioned revolutionary Black nationalism, because this is exactly what Malcolm ended up at. We know he ended up there because of who came next. People like Dr. Obitashaka and Dr. Conrad Worrell. They were revolutionary Black nationalists. I mentioned Dr. Anderson Thompson. This was a scholarship of the movement. And I think where we, as Black people in America or Africans in America, get it wrong is we see people who have been chased out of their country because of Western oppression, and particularly the Somalians, American oppression. And they come to collect their resources. It's just like the Indians are going and flooding into the UK. And I think that we drop the principles of our struggle and expect that because we see someone or a group of people, in this case, from the African continent, that they're all conscious, right? We can't even find that amongst Black people in America, right? So Dr. Conrad Worrell said in one of my last meetings with him, is that our struggle is for the minds of Black people. That means the raising of the level of consciousness of our people. We can't say that all 90,000 Somalians who came over here, they are African conscious. No, not at all. They're here to get their resources. They're here to assimilate or do whatever they can for themselves, right? Those are not the people that we're trying to struggle with, right? We're trying to struggle. And if we are, the ones that I've engaged, particularly on the individual level, Somalis, there's no problem with my politics, and I have no problem with their politics. They have the politics of liberation. The ones that I've engaged with, Dunya Nur out of Edmonton, Canada, a group of Somalians out of DC years ago that I've engaged with, and they're just as revolutionary as I am. So I think as we look at the Somalians, even of themselves, they're not a monolith, right? But we do know, just as other immigrant groups that come from the African continent, that it is our duty to receive them, invite them into our homes, and then find some common ground of struggle. Have we done that as Black Americans? No. We've leaned on this Yvette Carnell, Antonio Moore, Tariq Nasheed, who came up with this term, foundational Black American, and that is to hate all African people, Black people who weren't born in Mississippi or Watts in California.
I think you're wrong, Malik. Absolutely. I think that argument is
Tariq Nasheed garbage.
And the issue is that with the 14th Amendment dealing with reparations, it was designed that who was an African American descendant from slavery. All right, that cannot be confused with
and it's not a reparation struggle.
All right, and so I think that's a miscalculation.
Tariq Nasheed,
and then you talk about leadership. All right, the leadership of the Somali community, Omar Fatal.
Not the leader of the Somali community, bro.
They're not revolutionary. They are assimilationists.
They're running away from American oppression of in their own country, bro.
Let's take a look at Somalia. And I don't know if we got a map and can put.
Hey, wait. Art, before you jump in, just let me finish Dr. White's point and make sure that he finished his. But I'd like you to respond to this, and that is, our reparation struggle is not defined by some FBA garbage, okay? And Tariq Nasheed, who hates Black people from anywhere else outside of Mississippi and Watts. And this is clear, okay? But we can say that it's defined by people in our history, such as Sister Callie House, right? Go back and do the research on her, going all the way back to the latter part of the 20th century, where she emerges as the first organized group to call for reparations for Black people. And as such, she becomes case number one of COINTELPRO, launched by the FBI and J. Edgar Hoover. Case number one. Sent her to jail for 1 year and let her out after 1 year and 1 day. This is the beginning of the reparations movement that happened in 1916. Tariq Nasheed, these Yvette Carnels and Antonio Moore literally hate African people from everywhere. And they think that they have a special place because the white man somewhere down the line raped one of their great-great-grandmammies on the plantation. Well, I'm here to say, tell you what Malcolm said. I'm here to say what Dr. Khaled said. And I'm here to say what Garvey said. You ain't special because your great-great-grandmammy got raped on some plantation down in Georgia and made you a yellow nigga. Nope, it ain't flying. Our politics of reparations goes all the way back to Sister Callie House. And if you want to do research there, then that's where it starts at. It don't start with this FBA financed by white Republicans over the last 10 years, and they're going to emerge as the voice for the reparations movement and black people. We reject that, and we reject that wholeheartedly.
Do we have a map of
I think
the Horn of Africa that we can
go ahead.
share?
I'll get one. Give me a moment. I'll get one. I didn't have it loaded up.
Okay. Well, what I wanted to say was, of course, very recently, back in 1974, after Hiram Mengistu was elected as president of or prime minister of Ethiopia, the U.S. went into a tailspin to figure out how they could disrupt this person who had leanings towards socialism and even Marxism coming to power in Ethiopia. And also he was similar to where we are looking at Traoré in gosh, I'm slipping on the country, Burkina Faso at this point. Very similar in the way they came to prominence at that time. Well, immediately the U.S. started to, and we mentioned COINTELPRO. Well, they got an international COINTELPRO strategy too, and that's to disrupt Africans wherever they move and wherever they emerge. So you see a map here with 54, 55 countries across the continent. And these, keep in mind, are borders that were drawn by the Europeans, continue to be subdivided by the Europeans. They would make it 100 or 1,000 countries in Africa if they could. That would be their destination, because the more fragmented Africa is, the more of these kinds of arguments they will have, because they'll put and essentially promote those kinds of arguments behind the scenes so that Africans continue to fight and struggle against each other. But Somalia is this green country on the far left of your screen that wraps around
the Horn of Africa.
It's called the Horn of Africa, but it is definitely, as you can see, it covers not only a lot of the Indian Ocean coming up, but it also indents into the Red Sea. Well, when in 74, when the Ethiopian people decided to make a very strong shift towards their own nationhood, the U.S. came in and intervened on the side of Somalis to fight a war against the Ethiopians over the Ogaden desert region, which had a lot of Somali-speaking people in that area. So they're reverting back to a time when they didn't have these borders, but conveniently the U.S. and the West goes in to intervene and essentially interfere into the politics of both of those countries to gain access. The U.S. has always wanted to control Somalia because of its access to sea lanes, as you can see. Everything that comes out of the Red Sea or goes into the Red Sea passes Somalia and then proceeds down around the coast would have to pass Somalia too. So strategically, Somalia is very important. And the U.S. was actually at that time so willing to disrupt what was going on in Ethiopia that they gave the Somalis military support and financial support and did whatever they could to intervene in that conflict. So the U.S. as a result of their intervention and their non-intervention, and this East-West dynamic that they try to essentially exploit in that region, have left Somalia in the state that Malik mentioned about Black Hawk Down and the things that you've seen. So we're kind of fast forwarding to contemporary Somalia. And that country was devastated by the direct effects of the U.S. So we owe Somali, if not Minnesota or part of Minnesota, we definitely owe them. We as American people owe them a hell of a lot more than they can extract at this point.
But I think
let me finish.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
What I'm saying is, as America is indebted to the Somali people, when those people are driven out of their own country because of the poverty created by this East-West conflict, with the U.S. fueling the yeoman's part of that effort, those people are obligated. They're gonna have millions of refugees, and I think that they should wind up on the doorstep, if not in the living room, of the people who caused those problems. You broke it, you fix it. The problems that are in Minnesota are directly as a result of the meddling and the just.
There's no denying what you're saying, Arthur, about colonialism and imperialism, what America has done. In fact, most African Americans who are conscious supports the element that the United States should not have done this. We support self-sufficiency and self-determinism. Most conscious Americans. However, and we go out our way to do that. That's not the issue. The issue is this. That is when these groups come into the United States and they're banking and they're benefiting off of the backs of African Americans. The 14th Amendment, Civil Rights Acts, and so forth, and they do not join the fight with African Americans to achieve justice in the United States. That is the issue. All right? Because most of them
that's really
straight up that they're here to benefit.
That's not the issue. The real issue is, would people come from Ukraine and set up
African Americans
U.S.
and say and ask African Americans, what has the Somali community done with you to fight injustices in our community? This is not.
That's not an equal argument. That's not an equivalent argument.
This story is throughout New York, Chicago, Miami, everywhere you go. All right.
I don't know who you're speaking of when you say we.
Beginning to say that, listen, but it comes down to fighting justice in the United States. We're on our own. So therefore,
again, we can't. Why do we
about? I'm going to join another force. You need to ask those people when you come here to align with African Americans in the fight for justice. When I'm in Brazil, I align with the fight for justice with the Afro-Brazilians. When I'm in Cuba, I align with the Afro-Cubanos for justice. All right. When I'm in other areas, I do the same. We just asking for reciprocity,
brother. You can't ask,
and that is nothing wrong with that. That doesn't mean
you can't ask for personal reciprocity of everybody that comes out of the African continent or the Caribbean, for that matter. We have to look. We can't look at these people as a monolith. Not everybody's going to be at your level and be able to go in and offer the kinds of reciprocity that you can. But I'm saying we cannot expect Black people from around the world to act and think like we do.
I'm not going to ask them all, but if they come and they benefit on African Americans, most of them getting jobs because of the struggles of affirmative action for African Americans. The fact about it, many Africans are getting jobs and opportunities that African Americans can't
The
get.
same thing can be said.
That's a
The same
reality.
thing can be said about any group from any other country in the world. They come here to take advantage of their opportunities in America, and it's always at the expense of
Off
Black
the
people.
backs of African Americans.
Absolutely, we're
And
totally,
that is
totally in
a
agreement
fact.
with that.
So therefore,
from.
they must join the fight for justice on our behalf. If they're not going to join the fight for justice, then you cannot ask African Americans to say, okay, I'm with you, I'm down with you because you're in trouble. That's not happening.
That becomes an overarching argument of our international unity. If international unity is more important to you than petty arguments, then you are going to go with.
But this is not a petty argument. This is a real argument that needs to be talked about and dealt with.
Yeah, Dr. White and Art, let me jump in because again, the overarching reach and construct of the Muslim street and struggle is the context of Pan-Africanism. So let me just read something, and I would like to take time as we close out the last 15 minutes of both of you, allow both of you equal time to response. This is from the desk of Dr. Conrad Worrell. This is March of 2019, I think a year or so before he passed away. And of course, Dr. Conrad Worrell was the chairman emeritus of the National Black United Front. I headed his organization's Florida chapter, and I was the founding chairman back in 2003. He writes, the current public discussion, and this is in response to this ADOS, FBA, Tariq Nasheed nonsense around reparations from one of our scholars. The current public discussions regarding the direction of the reparations movement in America has fueled debate on the question of reparations and Pan-Africanism. I offer this history to help kind of clear the way, he says. He goes on to say, the Pan-African component of the reparations movement launched its first international conference on reparations in Lagos, Nigeria, December of 1990. After that conference, the Organization of African Unity set up a group of eminent persons, GEP, in June of 1992. Its aim was to work out the different ways in which to proceed and secure technical advisors who would help solve some of the difficulties with the claim for reparation. A second conference on reparations was held in Abuja in Nigeria in 1993, attended by representatives throughout the diaspora. That conference issued a declaration, the Abuja Proclamation. Everybody should read that. I've read it, which called for a national reparations committee to be established throughout Africa and the diaspora. Africa and the diaspora. The African reparations movement in UK was formed in 1993 as a result of that proclamation. It is important, as he closes this out, it is important that we understand that the idea of reparations has caught on with the masses of African people worldwide, in spite of the opposition of forces of white supremacy. A declaration from the United States led by the late Dr. Jacob Carruthers out of Chicago and the late Dr. Ron Walters, and I studied directly under Dr. Jacob Carruthers at the Center for Inner City Studies. Dr. Ron Walters participated in the Abuja's first Pan-African conference and reported back to the leaders of the reparations movement in this country, the United States, their observations and analysis. With this brief backdrop, herein lies our differences with the ADOS reparations and the FBA position that appears to disconnect African people in America from the worldwide African demand for reparations. And he said that he would write soon on that. He spoke to that. And I have to say, in my last meeting with him in Chicago, and I really want you two brothers to really drill in on what we talked about here, what Dr. Worrell talked about. In my last meeting with him, subsequent to his passing, he was sad. And he said to me, he said, I think that we have entered a period because of social media of anti-academia and anti-intellectualism. And I'll start with Art, and then we'll let Dr. White close out.
Well, that's a sad indictment of where we are. And I would like to think that what Dr. Worrell in Malcolm and in Nkrumah and Lumumba and other brothers have been saying all along is a continuum, and it continues with us here today. It continues with other great African minds on the continent and off the continent. And I think that those that are the most efficient and most effective will always rise to the top. If you want to make points with African people, then you have to speak to the intelligence, the highest intelligence of African people in order for that to happen. Right now, yes, there is a movement for reparations, and it's not just and never has been simply about Africans in the U.S. and the problems that resulted from slavery inflicted on African Americans or Native Americans here in the U.S., but has always looked at the bigger picture and the bigger scope of how did slavery become a basis here in the U.S. It became a basis because of a war that was first launched upon Africa, and Africa is owed reparations for that war against Africa. So I think that we have to be very realistic in looking at an international effort to repair what has happened to African people. And I always say personally that can't start until we talk about the land. If you want to provide reparations for Black people anywhere, and you want to provide reparations for Black people everywhere, and you look at the sense of justice that entails, you have to look at the war that was launched against Africa itself. And when you look at the war that was launched against Africa itself, it was to take Africa away from African people, to subjugate those people so that you could take and extract slaves from the continent. Give Africa back its land. First of all, the whole reparations discussion should start with fundamentally giving Africans back control of the entire African continent. If you are not ready to do that, we're not ready to sit down and have that discussion, and it's not going to proceed, because from that will come the basis for reparations for Africans throughout the diaspora. It can't happen in peace here and there unless you feed the very system that started the war in the first place. So let's concede that give Africa back its land, then Africans on the land can organize. We have to organize, but they can organize to facilitate getting reparations and reparative justice to every African person throughout the diaspora as a means of truly repairing what's happened to African people. And if I get a chance, I'll close with something that Jamil El-Amin said. Brother H. Rap Brown, who, peace be upon him, passed away recently. And I think we can't skirt, because this is the first show we've had since he's passed away. But we need to pay homage.
Yeah. So, Dr. White, you can close us out. We got a few minutes left. In the name of Sister Callie House, and I mentioned earlier, I just want to document for the show and for the talking points. In the late 19th century, she created what we now know is the mother and the framework and the history of the reparations movement amongst Black people here in America. The first National Convention of Ex-Slave Mutual Relief Bounty and Pension Association, of which no good J. Edgar Hoover made her, not Marcus Garvey, but made her public enemy number one and case number one of the counterintelligence program, which destabilized our movements. So our reparations movement doesn't start with these clowns like Tariq Nasheed and these white financed people like Antonio Moore and Yvette Carnell, this ADOS stuff. And you can invite any one of them on here, specifically Tariq Nasheed. I would eat him alive, have him for lunch right in front of everybody with that anti-African everywhere else but the United States, Mississippi and LA, Watts, special privilege. Get out of here with that garbage. Dr. White, you can close it out.
Well, thank you. I am a Pan-Africanist. I believe in the liberation and self-determinism of the people of Africa, but also the people of Central and South America, the Caribbean, and anywhere Black people reside, live, and flourish. With that being said, I'm also a believer in African American solidarity. I believe that African Americans outside of Native Americans, so-called Indians, are the oldest minority group in the United States, and they have suffered the greatest. With that being said, within our 400 years until now, it seems as if that we are still at the bottom. Other people have come into the United States. Some look like us, some do not look like us, but they have been able to achieve economic stability, political growth, community development, something that we still talk about and aspire to have, but we don't have. So that being said, I argue that African Americans are alone and they must unify themselves, create their own communities. For the people who want to join us, they're more welcome. But if they don't want to join us, then we have to say, nice knowing you. That's where I stand. That's where it is right now. And I think right now, with our condition, that's where it has to be. Thank you. I love the Muslim streak. I love Malik. I love, everyone, on this show, because we are truth tellers and freedom fighters.
Thank you for that perspective, Dr. White, and also the great Art Mobley of Diaspora 23. I want to thank you for your perspectives, and I can kind of leave this show with when we see African people coming from the African continent, they have been poisoned by white Americans. They've been poisoned by religious groups who go over to the African continent from the United States. We've seen this ourselves on the African continent. These missionaries who tell them, when you get to America, don't go around those Black Americans. They're all thugs. They're killers. They're thieves. They're murderers. Stay away from them, right? And then here on this side, we've been made to hate the brothers and sisters from Africa. Oh, they're swinging around in trees. They don't wear clothes. They all got diseases, like this stupid, ignorant sixth grader that I went to school with.
Exactly.
Sitting their skinny asses back home. You know what I'm saying? So we're messed up on both sides.
Brother Malik, I want to say one thing.
Wait. Before. Let me
all right.
And then I'll let you close the show out, actually, Lance, with this, because we got a minute and a half left. And that is the propaganda has affected both sides of this meeting. There has to be a unification meeting, particularly on the Black American side, because we're here. We see our brothers and sisters come. Invite them into your homes. Reach out to them, take them to lunch, take them to dinner. Try to get to know them. Just if you were going to their countries. I've been to over 20 countries on the African continent over a period since 1991, where I can say that the African people have invited me into their homes, and they've been warm and kind to me as one of their expatriates. Now, what has affected us, Dr. White and Art Mobley, comes from the great Dr. Khalid Muhammad, and I'll say that before I turn this over to Lance to close out the show. That we have been robbed of our languages, robbed of our religion. All right, we've been robbed of our culture, our mores, our standards. Right, and we lost everything. We lost the very names that we had prior to them enslaving us. And then Dr. Khalid closes out and he says, "And by the way that we act, we have even lost our minds." Lance.
Yes, I just wanted to say one thing. The other day, I was down in Accra at the various markets, and I Issa White. He put on video call, and he can tell you himself. This was random. Tell everyone what you saw, Dr. White. All the love of the people. Brother.
You broke up a bit.
Tell us. Say it again.
Can you repeat? You broke up. You broke up. We couldn't hear the first part of what you said.
Okay. No, I just wanted to say that Dr. White had called me when I was down in Accra at the village, and it was like a family reunion. For all the people who say that folks here don't like us, tell them what you saw, Dr. White, on the video call when you randomly called, and you saw everybody shaking hands, talking to you, the young lady selling stuff. Tell them about the love that you saw.
I mean, not only showing love to me and Brother Lance, but showing love to each other. Or we saw a unified community. They may have been poor, they may have been suffering, but you saw smiles, you saw love, you saw solidarity, and you saw in their spirit a people wanting a better life and wanting to stay and make their country better. That's something that was beautiful. And even though I was, 6,000 miles away, Brother Lance, through that video, made me feel as if I was walking the streets myself, and the people showing love to me felt good. I thank you, Brother Lance. May God continue to bless you.
And we're going to close out there. This is the Muslim Street. We'll be back next week, same time, same stations, www.themuslimstreet.com. We want to thank Dr. Viper Issa White. Get his book, Blacklisted, The Price for Speaking the Truth. Also, Art Mobley, who is one of the founding members of the National Association for Black Journalists. And also for producing us out of Accra, Ghana, 6,000 miles away, the Lance Scurv Show. And in the name of Cali House and the reparations movement for Black people here in America and throughout the world, Assalamu alaikum.
Alaikum salam. Peace.